Dust hangs heavy above the marching column. The road stretches ahead, baked hard by the summer sun. Your senior staff gathers close around your horse. They ride too close. You scan the tight circle of faces, noting the rigid jaws and darting eyes. These are commanders who owe their elevated ranks entirely to your patronage. They are also men who deeply fear your legendary discipline. The air feels stifling, thick with an unspoken collective dread. A leather rein snaps taut. A hand drifts casually toward a sword hilt, feigning a resting posture. You demand absolute, unquestioning obedience from your military apparatus. But sheer terror only maintains loyalty for so long. You feel the sharp edge of danger, pressing in from the very guards sworn to protect your life. Order is forged through relentless force, but the ultimate cost of that restoration always comes due. You are born into a society already fracturing at its foundations. Sprawling agricultural estates in the provinces offer no safety nets for a peasant family. Bronze coins sitting in rough woven pouches lose their purchasing value faster than seasonal crops can reach the harvest. Runaway hyperinflation hollows out local markets, turning daily commerce into an exercise in starvation. Beyond this immediate poverty, synchronized invasions continually tear at the northern borders. The central government proves entirely incapable of protecting its outer territories. You possess no aristocratic pedigree, no vast inherited wealth, and no political connections in the capital. Survival dictates, relying on raw physical endurance and an innate martial aptitude. Hard and unforgiving, the provincial soil shapes your character. It teaches you to become vastly harder than the elements seeking to destroy you. The desperate legions require officers who can actually fight, rather than noblemen simply playing at war for political prestige. You enlist in the ranks, abandoning the peasant fields for the barracks. The cavalry saddle quickly becomes your true home. Mounted warfare demands split-second decision-making, and you strike enemy formations with deliberate, calculated aggression. Entrenched aristocratic commanders regularly stumble during campaigns, paralyzed by their utter lack of practical tactical experience. You do not stumble. Pure battlefield competence pushes you steadily upward through the rigid military hierarchy. You drill your cavalry units mercilessly, forging them into a devastating shock force. Respect among the rank and file stems entirely from consistent victories, not from ancient patrician bloodlines. A crumbling state's sheer desperation clears a necessary path for an obscure provincial soldier to seize commanding authority. You understand that in an era of constant ambush, only the most ruthless commanders survive to see the dawn. By the year 270 CE, the imperial purple mantle drapes heavily over your armored shoulders. The Senate elevates you, yet the ceremony feels less like a triumphant coronation and far more like a grim death sentence. You inherit a spectacular, multifaceted catastrophe. The massive domain established centuries ago by Augustus now sits shattered into 3 distinct, openly hostile pieces. Usurpers tightly grip the fertile territories of the West. A heavily militarized rogue regime completely controls the wealthy eastern provinces. You stand isolated in the center, grasping a fractured and impoverished core. Every remaining frontier bleeds profusely from relentless external assaults. The civic treasury contains nothing but debt and worthless metal. The crushing burden of repairing this rapidly disintegrating machinery falls squarely onto your own scarred hands. There is no time to celebrate an ascension when the throne itself rests upon ashes. You mount your horse, preparing to pull a dying civilization back from the precipice. Invading tribal confederations do not simply test the frontier outposts. They smash completely through the defensive lines, pouring deep into the Italian peninsula itself. The cultural heartland burns as marauding bands sack cities, previously considered untouchable. You force march your hardened legions south to intercept the massive incursions. The resulting engagements are vicious, entirely stripped of any traditional imperial grandeur. You corner the raiding armies, systematically dismantling their formations in the mud of your own homeland. Eradicating the immediate threat requires a grinding campaign of attrition. You drive the surviving warriors back across the mountainous passes with merciless efficiency. Thousands of defeated enemies are intentionally left unburied along the roadsides as a silent warning. The survival of the core territory demands unwavering severity. Protecting the ancient capital requires you to become as relentless as the forces seeking to destroy it. With the Italian center temporarily secured, you turn your aggressive gaze toward the east. The wealthy eastern provinces operate under their own autonomous administration, actively hoarding the grain and gold necessary to sustain the empire. You refuse to send diplomatic envoys to negotiate a peaceful reintegration. Instead, you dispatch the legions. The grueling march across arid terrain severely tests the limits of human endurance. Yet, your infantrymen push forward, fearing your disciplinary wrath far more than the searing desert heat. You engage the breakaway armies in massive open-field combat, shattering their armored cavalry units. Heavy siege engines methodically batter down the fortified walls of their desert strongholds. You drag their defeated leadership back westward in heavy iron chains. The severed limb of the empire is forcibly reattached to the central body. True political unity stems directly from the edge of a blade, not from the ink of a treaty. Only the breakaway Western regime remains defiant. You immediately wheel your exhausted but victorious veterans toward the lush valleys of Gaul. The rebel armies stationed there possess significant numerical superiority, but they fundamentally lack your singular, terrifying momentum. The initial clash shatters their organized resistance almost instantly. Their aristocratic commanders choose rapid surrender, rather than facing the utter ruin you visited upon the east. You formally accept their capitulation, marching through the provincial capitals as the undisputed military master of the continent. The violently splintered map is finally stitched back together. You physically drag 3 warring fragments into one cohesive state. For the first time in years, a single sovereign dictates the fate of the known world. The staggering geographical expanse belongs entirely to you. You have achieved what your predecessors considered impossible, binding a fractured civilization through sheer willpower. Triumph on the battlefield proves insufficient to guarantee lasting stability. You recognize that the state still rots from within. You order the construction of massive new defensive walls around the capital, a stark architectural admission that the city is no longer invincible. You overhaul the heavily debased currency, ruthlessly forcing economic stability back into the local markets. A state-sponsored solar deity is elevated above the traditional pantheon, intended to spiritually bind the diverse populace together. However, laying these permanent foundations requires absolute, unquestioning compliance. Your disciplinary measures are notoriously unforgiving. Minor bureaucratic infractions routinely invite severe public punishment. You successfully stabilize the reeling government, yet your unrelenting severity isolates you from the administrative officials desperately needed to run it. Fear eventually breeds a dangerous, suffocating silence among your closest advisors. The men implementing your reforms begin to view you not as a savior, but as an existential threat. A regime sustained entirely by uncompromising harshness ensures its own violent conclusion. The calendar advances to 275 CE. The military column halts near a minor Thracian way station. Your senior staff deliberately closes the distance, tightening the ring of horses just as you noticed earlier. The stifling air thickens with an unspoken conspiracy. These trusted officers know your uncompromising methods far too well. Deceived by a forged document, they genuinely believe their names populate a secret execution list. Blind panic entirely overrides their sacred oaths of loyalty. The first hidden dagger suddenly slips from its leather sheath. There is no glorious battlefield confrontation, no legendary barbarian horde to conquer. The very men who ruthlessly executed your harsh will simply turn those violent methods upon you. They strike fast, driven by a desperate animalistic need for self-preservation. The rigid discipline that successfully held the legions together ultimately tears you down in a flurry of blades. You fall onto the dusty road, overwhelmed by your own commanders. You bleed out into the coarse dirt of an obscure military outpost, your life draining away beneath the boots of your own generals. 5 years of relentless, brutal campaigning successfully pulled an entire civilization back from the absolute brink of total dissolution. The towering brick defensive walls you constructed around the ancient capital will repel northern invaders for centuries to come. The sprawling frontier borders stand secure, and the commercial economy functions once again. Yet, a fragile society, stabilized by pure, unyielding severity, cannot permanently tolerate the heavy-handed architect of its salvation. You leave behind a fully reunified map and a functional government, an achievement bought entirely at the terrible price of your own existence. The frightened conspirators who murdered you will soon weep over your corpse, suddenly realizing the catastrophic magnitude of their tragic mistake. Order stands restored through relentless force, completely consuming the man who wielded it.